Ayan, good afternoon, fourth years. Good afternoon. Mag-mic test lang ako while we are waiting for your classmates to join our live stream this afternoon. So comment 1 sa mga nakakarinig loud and clear. Kindly comment 1, comment 1. So good afternoon. A few more minutes para antayin natin yung mga classmates ninyo. Thank you. Ayan, thank you sa mga nag-feedback. Ayan, so ibig sabihin, loud and clear tayo. Let's just wait for a few more. Say 1 minute para makapag-join yung inyong classmates. Ganun. Ayan, so I guess we have to start because most of you were with us since the first minute of this live stream para hindi naman nag-aantay yung iba sa inyo. As for the moment, there are 36 people on my screen watching. So that at the 36 yung mga nakikita kong nanonood sa ating live stream. Ganyan. So anyhow, habol na lang yung iba. But sabi ko nga, mag-check ako ng attendance hanggang 4:10. Okay, nag-screenshot kasi ako. And so before we go to our topic, supposed to be kasi itong i-discuss ko ngayon is na pre-record ko dapat ito. Ito yung offline ninyo last week. Pero because inayos ko muna yung mga other activities, mga future activities natin kaya hindi ko to na-record. So this will be our topic this week. And then after nung isang online natin, yun probably by weekend ulit yung inyong other offline. So may offline na tayo this week, not unlike last week. So but anyhow, last time we discussed about human rights. what are the kinds of human rights that existed, and also yung mga political rights, civil rights, and other forms of rights of individual. I also asked you guys to differentiate or to look into the difference between nung ating preamble, the UN preamble or the UN Human Rights preamble, and that of the Philippine preamble that discusses about human rights. Also, we have tackled some parts of the human rights in the Bible. So, ayan. Pahapyaw lang ulit sa ating human rights because we did not discuss this last time, yung etong sasabihin ko ngayon. Yung UNDHR, actually, yesterday was one of the celebrations. Kasi nabanggit ko rin sa inyo yung isa sa mga rights is yung rights of indigenous people. Yesterday was one of those worldwide celebrations when, Shopee, UN declared yung rights for the indigenous people. So yan. I think pinost ko sa FB group natin yun. But anyhow, share lang yun, SKL. Yan. Yung mga articles dito sa ating Universal Declarations in Human Rights, hindi natin isa-isahing i-discuss lahat ng article. So yung pinost ko or binigay ko sa inyong mga lessons is actually a summary of the human rights or yung mga topic, yung mga articles na nagdi-discuss nung rights of individual person. Yan. So tignan lang natin, pahapyaw. Let's just take a look into the tip of these declarations of our human rights. So this is universal. Every country that is member of the United Nations, ito ay sa kanila or they practice this. Pero meron pa rin kasi yung iba-ibang country na iba-iba naman yung rules. Ganyan. But this is universal. So karamihan. Ganon. Like for example, yung Article 1, we will not tackle or we will not memorize the Article 1. But we will have to check into it that it discusses about right to equality. Ano yung equality na tinatawag dito or describe dito? So all human beings are born free and we have equal quality sa dignity or sa rights. Kapag dignity, ibig sabihin lahat tayo pinanganak na pantay-pantay. Although mayaman ka, mahirap ako. When we have the right to dignity, na parang nire-recognize tayo ng ating society both as a human being. Ayan. So, yan yung dinidiscuss dito sa ating Article 1. We are all equal by birth. Then second, yung freedom from discrimination, isa-isahin lang natin on what articles. As I have said earlier, hindi i-memorize yung buong article. Article 1 states that, mga ganon. Hindi natin i-memorize yun. Pero tandaan nyo lang, na yung Article 1, it talks about right to equality. Article 2, it talks about freedom from discrimination. Ganyan. Ito yung sinasabi ko, yung summary ng mga articles. Para hindi na ninyo babasahin yung buong article. Ang mahalaga, maintindihan ninyo na yung specific article na yan is, yan yung nagme-mention nung, what do you call this? Nagme-mention nung ating article. Ayan, so 412 na ha, tatanggalin ko na yan. Okay? Tapno mabasa yung adagay article dagay baba na. Okay. And fourth years, nga pala, like for example, I'm speaking so fast or blurred or hindi nyo ako marinig or you have questions, you have comments, comment box lang tayo, okay? I will have time to read all your comments as we go along. So let's go back. Like for example, yung article number 2, nabubulol tuloy ako. It talks about freedom from discrimination. Discrimination of what? Yan. So, dinidiscriminate ka because ganito yung race mo, ganito yung color mo. This is your sex or gender for that matter. This is your language. This is your religion. Yan. So, Article 2 speaks about that everybody has their freedom, has the right to be free from discrimination. Yan. Handa ka nga mabalingo iyawan, gapos ta kasi ti pamating. Ayun. So, Article 3, right to life, liberty, personal security. Diniscuss na natin yung iba dito. So, yung hindi ko masyadong i-discuss, nabanggit na natin earlier. Alright? Freedom from slavery. Yan. So, all are born free. Freedom from torture and degrading treatment. Lalo na kapag ikaw ay employee lang, mga ganon. Okay? You have the freedom against those maltreatment, for example. Ganyan. Okay. And then, yung iba dito, na-discuss na natin. Let's take a look into the articles na hindi natin masyadong nabigyan ng linaw. Or baka may mga articles dito na gusto nyong i-discuss natin. Halimbawa, hindi malinaw sa inyo. Sabihin nyo lang. Yan. So, let's take a look into those articles na hindi natin masyadong na-discuss. Let me choose, like for example, yung the right to free movement in and out of the country. Alam na siguro ninyo yan. You have the right to travel anytime you want, anyhow you want, whenever you want it. Ganun. Except of course, kung merong order ang batas na hindi ka pwedeng umalis ng Philippines because meron kang nagawang kasalanan, yun. Exemptions naman yung mga yun. And then, right to asylum in other countries from persecution. This actually happened during the Tokyo Olympics. Taga saan na pala yung athlete? No. Meron kasi isang athlete na nagkaroon ng kaguluhan sa kanyang team. Tapos, pinapauwi siya ngayon sa bansa. Taga Belarus siya. Belarusian female athlete. Athletics athlete. Tapos, nagkaroon siya ng altercation with the team, with her coach. Ngayon, pinapauwi siya. Tapos, nagkaroon siya ng takot para sa buhay niya. Because, pag uuwi siya sa kanilang mga bansa, baka hindi na siya hahayaan na baka ikukulong na siya or worse, baka patayin siya. Ganon. So, nag-seek siya ng asylum from other countries and Poland give her an asylum. So, yan, lahat tayo may right na humingi ng asylum sa ibang bansa. Depende lang kung gugustuhin naman ng mga bansa na yun. Yung asylum na yun na sinasabi is pwede kang mag-take ng refuge. Pwede kang umuwi, pwede kang magtago sa bansa na yun. Ganon. Okay? Blurred ba? Kapag blurred, mga kapatid, when facing your screen, upper right, may tatlong dots dito. Upper right, nakikita nyo yung tatlong dots. Pindot nyo lang yan, taasan nyo lang yung HD ng inyong mga screen kasi hindi tayo pare-parehas ng internet connection or yung kabilis ng internet. So, pwede siyang magbo-blurred sa inyong mga screen, mga ganun. Ayan. Kasi syempre, nakikita ko yung screen ko lang. Maliwanag naman yung screen ko, pero yun nga, iba-iba yung pagta-transmit ng messages. So, i-click nyo lang yung tatlong button dito sa upper right para makita nyo. Or tatlo, medyo lumawlawag kakabsat. Kasi babasik ka talaga dito. But anyhow, ayan. And then, yung other articles na sinasabi ko is, like for example, let's see. Right to marriage and family daw sabi sa Article 16. Of course, it's your right to choose whomever you want to marry. Ganon. Right to own a property. Alam niyo siguro yan, self-explanatory. Every one of us has the right to own any property that we want as long as it's not against the law. Alam niyo yung mga against the law? For example, bawal sa batas na magkaroon ka ng sarili mong spaceship. Syempre, mga ganon. Example lang yun nakakatawa yung mga examples natin, pero those are concrete examples. Yung mga yun, you have the right to own those things. Like for example, house and lot, car, ganon. And then, what else? Yung mga hindi masyadong self-explanatory dito. Let me just read a little bit. Work and join trade unions, rest and leisure. I think, yung iba dito, pag nabasa nyo, like for example, kahit mabasa mo lang to, right to education. Diba, amuyo nga dagos, Dejay? Right to participate in the cultural life of community. Alam nyo siguro yan. Whatever style of community do you have, yung mga cultural life or yung activities ng society ninyo, you have all the right to participate in those. Hindi ka pwedeng coerce. Hindi ka pwedeng hindi pasalihin. Ganyan. And then, right to social order that articulates this document. Halimbawa, itong document na ito is parang ganito. Tinuturo ko sa inyo or dinidiscuss ko sa inyo, you have the right to join this one. Hindi kayo pwedeng pagbawalan. Ganun. Okay? And then, others, what else? Can you tell me, guys, if may mga articles dito na hindi nyo naiintindihan? Okay? Baka may mga hindi kayo naiintindihan. But you have to remember what article speaks about the right to rest and leisure. Halimbawa, ayan. Sa exam, binigay ko yun. What article in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights speaks about right to rest and leisure? Oh, the answer is Article 24. Ganon. Hindi ko ipapalagay yung buong article. Or like for example naman, in the Article 17 of the United Nations or Universal Declaration of Human Rights, ano yung tinatakol ng Article 17 halimbawa? So Article 17 speaks about right to own property, period. Hindi nyo na kailangan ilalagay yung buo. Kasi for example, yung Article 17, halimbawa tinanong ko yung Article 17, mahaba-haba yun. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others and that no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. Medyo mahaba yun. Pero ang isasagot lang is the right to own property. Yung summary lang nung article. Yun. Mayaton, hanan ngag-blurred ka kabsat? Mayaton? So, ayan, you have to read on these articles, kung ano yung tinatopic niya. Sabi ko nga, medyo self-explanatory yan. So, okay? We don't have questions in this one. We don't have any clarifications. Let's go to the timeline of corrections. Earlier, we have discussed this. Parang nabanggit ko na ito. Ito dapat kasi yung second topic natin. Medyo, I don't know, yung aking slides nagkabali-baliktad. Ganun. But anyhow, why are we going to tackle pa yung timeline of corrections or early corrections? Kasi dito nag-spring yung topic natin na models or therapeutic modalities. Saan nagkaroon or saan nagsimula na dapat magkaroon ng therapy yung mga nasa kulungan. Dagiti nagkaroon kulungan no, nagkaroon da pa lang ti therapy or dagita nga kwan. Parang ganun. So dito nagsisimula sa timeline of corrections. We have to take a look back on the timeline or on the history of corrections at hanggang ngayon kung bakit nagkaroon ng mga ganitong modalities when it comes to corrections. Although natakol na ninyo yung ibang mga ganito topic sa correction. Ayan, bakit blurred pa rin sa iba? Ayan, anyhow, magalaw yata akong Ayan. Again, kapag nag-blurred sa inyo, adjust nyo lang yung HD. Yun yung may sasuggest ko lang. Ayan, so, but anyhow, ayun. Let's go to the timeline of corrections. Earlier, yung mga may kasalanan, they were thrown or they were not thrown. They were put into these three examples of corrections. Isa yung gaols or yung jails. Ito yung parang small places or small jails na pinaglalagyan ng mga taong awaiting trial. Parang sila yung ating mga municipal jail or yung ano kasing tawag doon? Yung precincts. They were precincts before. So they were gaol. So this one, example of gaol lang itong mga to. Hindi lahat ng gaol ganito yung tsura. Hindi lahat ng gaols during this time ganito kaganda. Ayan, present ko lang yan, isa yan sa mga example. So these are where those people awaiting trial are put for them to wait for their trials. And then also they have these galleys. These are actually big boats, usually wooden boats, and that man-powered. Pinapatakbo siya ng mga tao. Pinapatakbo siya ng mga criminal. Tayo ngay agro-row, nagro-row sila na sabay-sabay. Siguro naman once in your life nakakita kayo ng movie na ganun. Wherein dun sa ilalim ng boat, sa pinakababa, instead na machine or steamboat, halimbawa, hindi, tao yung nagpapatakbo sa bangka. Ganyan. And those people are those criminals na yun. Ayan. So, habang tinatransport yung criminals by boat, sila na rin yung nagro-row ng kanilang transportation. Those are galleys. And the hulks or hulk from the name itself, very big. It's a big boat na nakalutang sa katubigan. These are big abandoned warships that were converted para maging prison ng mga criminals in the early times. Have you watched the movie Waterworld? Or do you have any idea of that movie, Waterworld by Kevin Costner? Ayan, pag napanood nyo yun, those are one example ng ating mga hulks. So this one, dito nilalagay yung ating mga preso. Ganyan. Bakit blurred sa iba? Wait lang ha, lakihan ko konti. Di daw makanumalasin, dahil kakadwayo kakabsat. Pero sa iba, nakikita nyo ba? Ayan. Comment na yung iba kapag lahat ba sa inyo blurred? Lahat ba kayo blurred? Ayan. So, pa-comment nga konti kasi blurred pa daw sa iba eh. Blurred pa lang aya kakabsatay da do mga rod. Mayat-mat ka no tayo da duma. Ayan. Sa signal lang talaga siguro tayo nagkakatalo. So anyhow, basta makinig kayo sa aking discussion ha. May copy naman siguro kayo ng inyong mga notes. May copies kayo, may soft copy din tayong na-upload sa inyong mga notes, correct? So yan, so pwede nyo na lang balikan. You have just to listen naman. Ayan, ano sa inyo pwede tayo boses ko, ana. Yan, so clear sa iba, thank you sa feedback. So let's go back. Ito yung tatlo lang na parang prominent or sobrang kilala kapag yung corrections or correctional yung pag-uusapan in the early times. There are others, though, na mga ganito. But these are yung tatlong pinakakilala or tatlong pinaka-prominent na meron siyang influence sa ating style of correction today or yung style ng correctionals natin ngayon. I haven't seen yet the provincial jail of Ilocos Norte or any jail in Ilocos Norte for that matter. Nakalimutan ko nga, no? Sige. When I go back there, I have to, visit to take a look into the correctional of the provincial government of Ilocos Norte. I have seen others kasi. So, but anyhow, yan. And also in the early times, ito yun, yung kanilang, wala silang therapeutic modalities before. Doon sa may mga kasalanan. Ordeals ang meron. Alam niyo ba ibig sabihin ng ordeal? Pagpapahirap yan. So, kung kayo nahihirapan kayo sa mga relationships ninyo, ordeals ang tawag dyan. Okay? Sample lang yan, but that is the meaning of ordeal talaga. So, ordeals ang meron sila dati kapag ikaw ay na-suspect to have committed a crime. Yan. So, early times, wala silang therapeutic modality. Parang walang karapatan kapag ikaw ay, nakusla kumakot ka, napabasol ka nga, inaramid mo tinay isang crime, wala kang karapatan na magkaroon ng therapeutic correction. Walang therapy sa kanilang correction. Ang meron, ordeal lang. Yan. The ordeals. This one is by ordeal by submersion in water. One of those styles, kasi marami yung style of submersion by water ha, background ulit konti. Meron yung ilulubog ka sa tubig, itatali sa'yo yung malaking bato. Pag lumubog ka kasalanan mo, natimpaw ka haan ka no. Kasi nakagar na tumpaw kat intay da kati bato, di ba? Yan, mga ganon. Kaisipan nila dati. Another ordeal, yung itong ordeal by the boiling water. O na halimbawa, ano tayo tawag niya sa'yo? Pinabasol na ka nagtakaw, iti apple. Joke lang. Pero bakit basta pinabasol na ka nagtakaw? Ayan. Ilablab mo ka no tayo imam tayo burburok nga danom. Pag yung kamay mo na sinit, talaga nga si kanangala. Ngam numadi nga naglapnos na kita yung imam hanga sikat nangala. O, di ba? Sino ba namang hindi mapapaso dyan, may init na tubig yan. I mean, those kinds of thinking beforehand naman yan. So those are the kinds of ordeals that yung mga, hindi naman criminal kaagad kasi ano pa sila, they undergo trial pa naman. Diba? Sila yung mga mahahatulan pa lang during those times. Ayan. Okay. Ayan, thank you. Ano sa inyo lang tamang yan? Adjust one. Agbo-blurry. Ganun. I think it's the internet signal. Baka yung sa akin din. Kasi sa screen ko maliwanag naman ako. Pero sometimes nagpa-flicker yung signal ng internet. But anyhow, yan. And then yung ancient, diniscuss ko na rin to, right? Earlier, I think, or correct, yung aking na-remember. During the 30th, 15th, 16th, and 18th century, actually, in between ng mga to, marami pa yung ancient styles of correction. Pero hindi naman kasi yung i-discuss talaga natin. And I know that you have tackled this one in your correction subject. So, but anyhow, during those times, yung mga punishment nila, kakaiba sa mga punishment natin ngayon. Although meron siyang influence sa punishment natin ngayon. Yan. Basahin nyo na lang to kapatid. I think I've discussed this one. Alright? Inayos ko lang yung aking slide. At ewan kung bakit nagkakabalik-baliktad. So anyhow, yung ating second unit in this prelim is yung, it talks about treatment and punishment. Let's go first to punishment. So, punishment is intended for the person who is already para siyang nahatulan na siya na siya yung gumawa ng crime. So, dapat meron siyang punishment. Ayan. So, when we say punishment, it is restricted to the suffering inflicted upon that offender. Ayan. So, binibigay lang yan specifically doon sa offender. Ayan. So, how? It's a definite way or specific way. Kung halimbawa, kastoy ti basol mo, kastoy ti maging parusam. Iba naman kung halimbawa si Mr. B is ganito yung kasalanan niya, iba rin yung magiging punishment niya. So, specific yan. And it is given by the society kung saan ka nakatira or saan ka member. And it's also done in the name of that society. Like for example, si Mr. Huwag kang ma-offend kung kunin kitang example dito. Titingin kasi ako ng mga pangalan dito. Si Mr. Agbayani, ayan. Parang maraming Agbayani dito. But anyhow, Mr. Agbayani, halimbawa, taga Bacaracay, example lang. May ginawa kang offense, ipapunish ka ng mga people ng Bacara. And yung punishment mo is carried by those people sa yung lugar ng Bacara. Parang ganun lang yan kasimple. Okay? It's given by your community. It's in the name of your community. Parang people of Bacara versus Mr. Agbayani, and that therefore Mr. Agbayani is to be punished by the people of Bacara. Parang ganon. And then yung punishment is must be intended, hindi lang siya accidental nangyari. Okay, there's a difference in this one. Let me take another example. Mr. I hope you are Mr. Kasi RJ naman yung pangalan. Mr. Ramiscal, halimbawa ikaw naman, gumawa ka ng kasalanan. Yadadayo ba? Mamong araramidan. Ito lang. Example, for example, gumawa ka ng crime during the olden times to ha. Tapos, may nangyaring accident sa'yo. For example lang. Tapos, parang na-aksidente ka, parang may nangyari sa'yong masama. Like for example, nabalian ka ng buto, yun na. And then, aksidente yung nangyari ha, hindi yun po pwedeng yun ang punishment mo sa ginawa mong crime. Because that is not intended by the society na kung saan mo ginawa yung crime. Okay, hindi yan yung binigay ng society na punishment mo, aksidente yan na nangyari. So despite the fact na na-aksidente ka na nga, bibigyan ka pa rin ng suffering. That must be justified by the society. Yan, okay? And it's to be enforced forcibly. Gusto mong mo man o hindi yung punishment, may nangyari man sa yung aksidente o wala, i-enforce sa'yo yung what do you call this? Punishment that you deserve as according to your offense. Okay. And another idea of punishment in the olden times is it is a form of disapproval sa isang certain behavior. Ano yung mga certain behavior na di-disapprove ng ating community? Ayan. May mga memes din ba yung tawag doon kapag yung mga joke? Like for example, meron yung medyo nauuso, napanood ko lang din kagabi, na yung kapitana umiikot sa kanilang barangay tapos pinagsasampal niya yung mga tao doon sa kanilang barangay na walang face mask. Ayan. So punishment yun. Example lang, punishment yun. Kasi dinidisapprove ng society or dinidisapprove ng kanilang place yung certain behavior na hindi gamit ng mask. Ganyan. So kasunod nun, mag-i-impose pa sila ng penalty. Ano yung penalty halimbawa? Pwedeng fine, pwede siyang physical punishment, pwede siyang physical torture. Ganyan. Ow. So also, yung punishment, it makes the offender stigmatized. Do you understand what we mean by stigmatized? Kapag sinabi natin stigmatized, you are regarded as disgraced. Kaslangay nga Ilocano, binirngasan, tama ba? Binigyan ka na ng nickname na offender ka. Tama ba yung Ilocano na yun? Nabirngasan ka nga si kakot, halimbawa nagnakaw ka, birngasan na ka nga manibrong ka. Parang ganun, you are stigmatized. You are given a disgraceful name or you are a disgrace already. Ganun. So aside from that, na binirngasan na ka kasi mape-penalize ka pa. Ganun. So you are in great disapproval of your community. Ganun. Comment lang kayo pag mali yung mga term ko ha, ganun. Or i-correct nyo pag mali yung term ko, ganun. And of course, yung offender may actually may or may not suffer. Ayan. And again, yung mga medieval movies, may mga inipapakita na kapag pinapunish yung isang offender, parang hindi nag-e-effect sa kanya yung punishment. Ayan. So, depende kasi yan sa acceptance ng tao dun sa kanyang punishment. Pwede niyang maramdaman yung pain or pwedeng ini-ignore niya naman yung pain. Depende rin yan sa toughness, depende yan sa acceptance nga ng isang tao sa kanyang punishment. Ayun, meron yung mga kahit ngayon naman, 'di ba, yung mga pinapunish halimbawa nasa loob na nga sila ng kulungan, tigasin pa rin. Mga gano'n. So doon magi-spring ngayon, doon nag-spring kung saan yung therapeutic modalities. Actually, yung therapeutic modalities, it's not just for actually yung purpose kasi nun is for parang to change yung mga behavior ganyan ng ating mga bilanggo. Pero dito sa early times, wala nga silang mga ganon. So, depende kasi yung toughness din nung preso. Ganon. Okay. So, you have questions on this one? Or I hope it's clear yung pag-explain natin. Simplihan lang natin yung explanation. And then, there are also forms of treatments and punishments. Actually, punishments to, hindi naman siya treatment. Later pa yung treatment. But anyhow, these are early forms of punishment. Primitive forms. Early forms, pag sinabing primitive kasi, early forms. Ayan. So, 4 lang yan. Death penalty, corporal punishment, tapos public humiliation and shaming, tapos banishment. Nakikita nyo dito sa baba, yung mga naka-red. Ayan, yung mga naka-red na yan yung 4 na forms of early punishments. Ayan. So let's take a look yung una. Death penalty was carried out by these ones. Ito yung mga pamamaraan nila on how death penalty was earlier carried out. Hanging, burning, immersion in these are self-explanatory. Yung other barbaric ways, pwede yung nasa Bible, alam niyo ba yun, yung binabato ka sa public. Yun, those are early forms of punishment as well. So those could inflict death. And also yung corporal punishment or isa rin ito sa mga major punishment. Flogging, mutilation, disfiguration, maiming, ayan, pagtatanggal ng part ng katawan ng isang tao na may kasalanan. Yung mga maiming, ganyan. Yung flogging is actually yung, what do you call this? Yung whips. When you are whipped in front of the other people. Saan ko nga ba nakita yun? Hunger Games, I think. Nasa book kasi yun ng Hunger Games. Yung pag pinapunish ka is, pinapalo ka ng latigo sa harap ng maraming tao. So yun, that is also a corporal punishment. Ayan. And then, public humiliation and shaming, ganyan. Isa dito yung use of stocks and pillory or yung, mayroon tayong video later, makikita nyo naman to. Pero ito yung, dadyan nga ikargada jay kayu sa leeg mo. Ganon, tapos kinikare mo yan around the community. Pwedeng mga ganon. Or yung branding. Branding literally, ginagawa natin yan sa mga kalabaw natin, sa mga baka natin, kapag gusto natin mag-claim ng ownership or para makita natin ng ibang tao na pag-aari natin yung mga ganon. They also do that. Branding. Physical branding. Ganyan. And then, shaving off the hair because during the early times, yung mga people, lalo na yung mga babae, they keep their hair long. Ayan. So, sinishave yung hair to humiliate you publicly. Ayan. So, ewan ko ba sa kapitbahay namin at ganitong oras siya talaga nagdi-disturb. But anyhow, yan. And also, yung isa sa mga punishment is yung banishment. I know you understand what banishment is. Yung pinagbabawalan kang bumalik sa lugar mo. Or, how do you term this in Ilocano? Parang pinapaalis ka na sa lugar at hindi ka na pwedeng bumalik or hindi ka pwedeng lumapit sa lugar na yun. That is banishment. Ayan. So, wala pa rin nagko-comment ng questions. Ayan, okay. So those are the 4 early primitive punishments. So there are others. First stick na lang tayo sa 4 na major na dinidiscuss ng mga books. Yan. And then early death penalty, yung mga laws before, they are so harsh that they have to be implemented by death penalty. Ayan. So, but then death penalty is not rampant o hindi naman siya masyadong ino-observe ngayon. Although meron pa rin. And so anyhow, yung first established na death penalty was carried out in Babylon. And this was found, or this is found in the Code of King Hammurabi ng Babylon. So 25 mm, different crimes yung pinapunish ng Code of Hammurabi. Maraming crimes na ginagawa pero ni-specify yung 25 ones kung saan nandoon binanggit kung how these certain crimes, 25 crimes, were conducted and how death penalty was carried out. Ayan. So, like for example, yung kasalanan mo is you accused another man. Parang inaccuse mo siya ng murder. Ganyan. Pero hindi mo siya ma-prove na ginawa niya yung murder during this time of King Hammurabi. Ikaw ngayon ay papatawan ng kamatayan. Yan. So, nadagsan digijay nga pamabasol. Parang ngayon, hindi masyado. 'Di ba? Idaro mo lang suna iti unjust vexation, ganun. Pwede na yun. Ipapunish ka lang sa unjust vexation. Pero during those times, kapag ikaw ay nagpabasol ng iyong kapitbahay nga pimatay isuna kasi kat hamumot nga mapanakan, ang kapatay ang punishment mo is death. Ganyan. So another example nung during the Code of Hammurabi kapag nagbe-bear ka ng chismis nga kasi chismis naman yan sa ating panahon, 'di ba? Yung false witness ka against sa isang tao. Nagbigay ka ng testimony mo na false naman against sa isang tao. Lalong-lalo na kapag yung mga cases na yan it involves life and death or it involves property, ganyan. Kamatayan pa rin yung punishment mo na yan. Yun yung ilan lang sa examples nung 25 different crimes. And also during this, what do you call this? During these early times, meron din yung Hittite Code. In this code also, they described a lot of crimes during the 14th century kung saan death penalty yung ipapunish. This is almost the same as the Code of Hammurabi. Meron lang silang certain na iniba. Like for example, yun nga yung sinasabi na nagbe-bear ka ng false witness against your neighbor. I forgot kung nasaan sa 10 Commandments yung do not bear false witness against your neighbor. Pero isa yan sa mga parang naging softer yung Hittite code as compared to that Code of Hammurabi. Ganyan. And then we also have yung Draconian Code, which is code naman siya ng Athens, Greece. Yan. Death penalty lang daw yung punishment sa lahat ng crimes. And do you know, yung Draconian codes, from the name itself, para siyang super tigasin. Hindi pa ito napapatunayan ha. When I researched about Draconian code, nabasa ko lang ito, pero hindi pa daw siya napapatunayan. This is just a theory of the scholars that have studied Draconian code. Yung Draconian code, nung sinusulat siya na batas, hindi siya sinulat na as normal. Naggamit yung ink and paper. Ang ginamit dyan is blood of yung mga napapunish. When they were writing the law, they were using the blood of those people punished to write that certain type of law. Ganyan. So, di ba, you can just see yung Draconian code medyo harsh. Inalada tay daram nga mangisulat tay batas dahil ikaw ay napatawan ng death penalty. Ayan. So, but anyhow, yun. Sabi nga nila, dun sa research, hindi pa yung napapatunayan. Theory lang yan ng mga scholars because apparently, yung nakita nilang scrolls of this Draconian code were written in blood. And then also, meron tayong Roman law, yung 12 tablets naman. Although, dito sa Roman law, makikita na yung batas na ito sa Bible times. So, yan. So, deaths were carried out by sentence or by crucifixion, like Jesus Christ in the Christian Bible. So, ano nga ba yung kasalanan niya? Alam niyo ba, yung sinasabi niyang siya ang anak ng Messiah and then people did not believe, crucifixion yan. Para siyang nagsasabi ng kasinungalingan as according to the story in the Bible. So, yan, crucifixion siya. Pwede rin yung drowning, ilumos na ka. Beating to death, actually ginawa rin ito. Before crucifixion, they beat him to death, pero hindi pa siya namatay doon. And then, burning alive. I'll give you a movie, Braveheart. Diba? Super old na mga movies na. Yung Braveheart is by Mel Gibson. Yan yung mga tao is they burn them alive kapag may kasalanan ka. Ganon. Impalement yan, simple lang yan, tinutusok ka ng mga bows and arrows or whatever. it is that they use to impale a person. So yan yung mga early death penalties during this one. So mga codes usually. Let's take a look at the other forms of early death penalty. This slide is not present in your what do you call this, modules. Kasi nung binabasa ko to medyo mahaba pa. So hindi ko pa nilagay. So ayan, medyo nabasa ko na yung part. Sa Great Britain and United States, pakikuha nga tong phone na to na nagsha-Shopee dito. Okay. But anyhow, in the earlier Great Britain and United States, meron din silang death penalty. So can you imagine yung Great Britain? Pag may death penalty siya ngayon, yung queen nagpapataw ng death penalty, di ba? Ayun. So, segue lang tayo. Sa Great Britain, sabi nila, Princess Diana was given the death penalty. So, hindi daw accident yung kanyang pagkamatay. Yan. Napanood ko lang yan sa mga conspiracy theories, ganun ang kanyang pagkamatay. But anyhow, example ko lang yan. During those early times, yung mga early centuries nila, hanging yung nakikita nilang paraan to impose death penalty dito sa Great Britain. Ganyan. Pero syempre, yung mga tao dito, hindi naman kaagad papatawan ng kamatayan or hindi naman kaagad ihahang. Ganon. Kapag hindi pa napatunayan yung kanyang crime, hindi siya kaagad i-execute. Ganon. Sa United States naman, yung death penalty nila were carried out in, para siyang medyo iba konti. Ganyan. Yung style nila doon, in comparison to Great Britain, is not just, parang hindi siya yung stricto, unlike in Great Britain. Like for example, yung nakita kong example, the earliest crime dito is yung, stealing grapes. Agtataka ko ti ubas, mga ganun. Yun ay mga capital crimes doon that they need to be punished with death penalty. And yung trading with Native Americans, if you have read or if you chanced upon history of the United States, Native Americans were the first peopling of the United States. Yung mga white na tao na nandoon ngayon sa United States, they are actually Europeans. They just conquered those soil of the Americas. Ngayon, nung nandun na sila yung mga tao na yun, nag-i-implement na sila ng death penalty. So kapag ikaw ay isang Amerikano, tapos nakikipag-trade ka, nakikipagkalakalan ka, nakikipag-usap ka sa mga Native Americans, that is punishable by death during those times. Yan. Dagdag lang naman yan, dagdag kaalaman sa ating death penalty. So, okay. Yung punishment, still this is under Unit 2. Yung punishment is a form of social control in the early times. Pero sa tingin ko naman, personally, still, punishment is a form of social control until now. What does it mean? It is a device to cause people to become coercive and to induce conformity. When we say coercive, yung punishment, pinapakita sa lahat ng tao para lahat ng mga tao magkapit-bisig. They have to depend on each other. Ayan. And they have to induce conformity. Yung batas, they need to induce conformity. Tapno mamati na gini tao, tapno patsyanda di batas. Ayan. So, kailangan may punishment yung mga tao. Again, yung mga kinukwento ko, conspiracy theory lang itong mga tuhan, napapanood ko lang, sinishare ko lang. Examples lang kasi. Yung virus is actually not to kill all people. It is meant to scare people. Yan, kasi yung iba, hindi na sila naniniwala sa government. Like for example, in the United States, hindi na masyadong naniniwala yung mga tao sa United States. So for the people to, conform again to the government, ayan, ang punishment nila, ayan, bigyan mo sila ng virus, parang ganun. Conspiracy theory lang yun, kaya nagiging example ko lang yung mga yun. Wait a minute. Walk of shame. It's the same. It's a punishment and it's a form of torture as well. Yung para magkaroon tayo ng eto na naman ako pag nag-Filipino ako minsan, nagsasalta ako sa Filipino, nabubulol ako. Let's take a comparison, like for example, yung punishment kasi na sinasabi, pwede siyang torture or pwede namang hindi. So ayan. So it is a punishment in a form of torture, yung walk of shame. Halimbawa, yung maalala ko nung high school, parang meron kaming ganito. Kapag may ginawa ka, pahahawakan ka ng placard na wag akong tularan kasi late ako. mga gano'n. Tapos maglalakad ka sa quadrangle ng school. That is an example of walk of shame. Sabi kasi ng isang classmate niyo noon, may naalala daw siya about the walk of shame. Siguro gano'n, gano'n, medyo parehas yung I hope medyo parehas yung sinasabi natin about this one. That is a form of punishment. Sa iba, torture yan. Nagiging physical torture yan, lalo na pag dinadagdagan yan ng hindi lang walk of shame, dinadagdagan pa yan ng palo, kistong, sipat, kasjay. So that is also a form of punishment. Yun. Oo nga no, walk of shame. Naalala ko tuloy nung high school. Hindi pa naman ako napapunish ng ganun, pero may mga kaklase kasi akong ganun. Tapos yung napapasquat sila sa harap ng flagpole kasi late sila, ganun. But anyhow, ayan, balik tayo dito sa ating punishment. Yung sinasabi ko nga, yung conspiracy theory, it is a means to control the people effectively. Social control yan, ganyan. So, nilagay ko ha. This belief is doubtful. Nakikita nyo? This belief is doubtful. Hindi ko sinasabing maniwala kayo na ganun nga yung nangyayari. Ako nga din I have my own personal belief. Pinapanood ko lang sila para magkaroon ako ng idea. Mga ganon. Alright? Yan. So, ganon. Pero, in the earlier times, talagang forms of punishment nila ay kapag pinapunish nila yung ibang tao at nakikita ng ibang tao yan. Sino ba namang may gustong mapunish kapag nakita mo na yung punishment is ganun kagrabe? Yung sinasabit ka sa labas, tapos nakikita ka ng lahat. Or like for example, yung punishment mo is babatuhin ka ng lahat, 'di ba? Makokontrol talaga yung crime sa isang community. Mga ganon. And of course, kapag yung community nyo is maliit lang, konti lang yung mga tao, mas madali kayong i-control. Pakita lang sa inyo yung sample nung punishment, makokontrol ka agad kayo. A concrete example, yung hindi ko alam kung anong pinakamaliit na munisipyo ng Ilocos Norte, pero ang alam kong isa sa mga maliliit, like for example, maluwang naman kasi ang San Nicolas. Adams is also very big. Like for example, Nueva Era, hindi naman masyadong ganun kalawak. Or hindi ko lang talaga na round ang Nueva Era. But for example, mas madaling i-control yung municipality ng Nueva Era kesa yung buong Ilocos Norte. Yan. Gets nyo siguro yan, di ba? Mas effective na magkaroon ng control or social control sa isang ganong kaliit na lugar kesa sa buong Ilocos Norte. Ganun. Or mas madali ring i-control yung halimbawa, yun nga, Nueva Era kesa sa Lawag. Kasi yung Lawag, yung mga tao dyan medyo mobile or magalaw. They can just go in and out Lawag as easy. Ganun. So marami silang exit and entry. As compared naman sa ating Nueva Era, halimbawa, na mas mahirap yung mobility. Ganyan. So yun nga ang means ng kanilang control is to induce yung punishment. Yan. So punishment is a means of social control. And another concept of punishment is that it is infliction of some sort of pain sa ating mga offenders. Yan. Yung example natin, yung bat-batuan ka, yung nilalatigo ka sa harap ng marami. Ganyan. That is to inflict pain. And that is also a form of social control. Ganyan. In the early times lang, hindi maliwanag as compared sa mga forms ng punishment natin ngayon. Hindi maliwanag yung severity ng offense and severity ng punishment. Ngayon kasi masasabi mo yung severity ng offense. Like for example, yung offense mo is a grave threat or simple lang yun na that is a form of physical injury. 'Di ba? Hindi yun kaagad sinasabi na kapag sa early times, di pa nang danog mo or compared di pa nang bagsol na the same na kasalanan yan. So the same din yung i-apply or i-administer sa'yo na punishment. Unlike now, magkaiba. Yung severity ng offense, yung severity ng punishment is in accordance to the severity of the offense. Earlier times, hindi siya maliwanag. Okay? Yan, isa sa mga concept yan ng early punishment. So, automatic kapag punishment yan, may offense ka kaagad doon sa government or doon sa batas or doon sa society. Automatic yan during the early times. So, okay? Maliwanag ba yun? That all forms of punishment before were given in conformity sa iyong kasalanan. It doesn't matter how, you know, yung severity ng offense mo. Ganun. May questions ba kayo dito sa treatment and punishment early times? Ayan. Sa mga nagko-comment ng ganyan, nag-share, that is appreciated mga kapatid, okay? Parang ganyan yung ating communications. Do you have questions in here? Because yung susunod dito is may papapanood ako sa inyong video. Okay? So, dito manggagaling yung activity ninyo, ha, early forms of punishment, and also the next video. Ganyan. So, wala kang itatanong dito? Moment for me to drink. Oh, walang questions yung iba. Siyempre, natakol nyo na sa corrections ninyo eh. Bina-background lang natin konti. Baka nakuha nyo yung subject din when you were in first year, mga ganon. So, yan. So, mga walang questions, eto, panoorin natin yung video. Lakasan ko lang konti. Wait lang ha. Lakasan ko konti. Lakasan nyo din yung mga volumes ng mga phones nyo or computers nyo or laptops nyo.
The medieval period saw brutal, violent, bloodthirsty punishments for criminals. From stealing to murder, the law had no fixed rules. Let's look at some of the methods and devices used.
Wait, sorry.
Medieval torture and punishment. The medieval period saw brutal, violent, bloodthirsty punishments for criminals. From stealing to murder, the law had no fixed rules. Let's look at some of the methods and devices used to inflict agony, to torture and punish. The pillory. The pillory was a form of public shaming and humiliation. The prisoner would place their neck and wrists through holes in a hinged wooden board, therefore trapping them in place for everyone to see. Passers-by would then mock, spit at, or throw rotten vegetables or animal excrement. There was also the danger that the criminal would kill whilst throwing stones or bricks. Thumb screws. It's the right to report agony in putting their thumbs in with a metal screw. The victim's fingers were slowly crushed. A confession was extracted. The rack. The rack was a large rectangular wooden frame constructed with a roller at both ends. The criminal had their ankles fastened on one end and their wrists to the other. The torturer cracked a handle to stretch the victim during interrogation, creating excruciating pain as limbs stretched from the body. The further the torturer went, the higher the chance of dislocation of muscles and ligaments, and loud popping sounds. And if they still failed to extract a confession, a ripping of limbs from the body. Breaking wheel. With the breaking wheel, the victim would have their limbs tied to the spokes and revolve while the torturer hit them with an iron hammer, mangling their arms and legs and breaking their bones. They were then a horrific form of execution for blasphemers, thieves, and witches would see them burnt at the stake. Usually the condemned would die from suffocation before the flames started to burn their flesh. The suffering of the condemned could be prolonged by the executioner by making the fire stop, causing loss of blood and heat stroke. Iron chair. This instrument of torture was covered in spikes on the
So, ayan, medyo na-late akong na-plug pa yung kanilang channel. But yan, so hinaram ko yung video from this one, the patreon.com. Marami silang mga history videos. Kapag, eto, ganon. Nawalan ng sound sa end part. Yes, yung end part lang naman is yung, you know, where they plugged in their, what do you call this? Their channel. So that one. So, dyan ka kinuha yung ating, sample video na yan. So, konti lang yung parang describe nila. They were just discussing about these kinds of the olden, yung parang yung diniscuss natin. Ganun. Ayan. Oo, nawala yung sounds kasi inoff ko yung microphone ko, hindi ko pala nakita yung sound. Ganon. But anyhow, during this last part, let me, balikan lang natin konti.
When the victim was forced to sit on the chair, the spikes pushed into the flesh, causing extreme pain, and blood loss occurred when they sat out of it. Subscribe for more.
Ayun lang, yung part na na-miss ninyo, mga kapatid, okay? So, during those times daw, those were the early forms of punishment. So, as you can see, burning people. Ganyan. Example ng burning people, nakita natin yan sa, sa Twilight, where the vampires were beheaded and then were burned. Ganon. But anyhow, those were forms of punishments. So, mga ganon. Yung video na to was actually one of the many videos nung pinagkuhanan ko. Pero ito lang kasi yung parang nakapag-discuss nung marami na early forms of punishments. Ayan. More of videos like this will be coming sa ating discussions. Hey, this phone Shopee. Hindi na kasi ako nag-Shopee kaya nag-notify si Shopee. But anyhow, do you have questions sa ating discussion ngayon before I will give you your activity? Ganun lang ka-short yung discussion natin kasi ito is ano lang naman ito. What do you call this? It's just a flashback of your correction subjects. So, do you have questions? May hindi maliwanag? May suggestions kayo or may gusto kayong sabihin regarding our, what do you call this? Regarding our lecture today before I will give you your next activity. I'll give you 30 seconds to hit the comment box, mga kapatid. Ayan, thank you sa mga nagko-comment na wala silang questions. Siyempre, madali intindihin to kasi nakuha nyo na 2 kayo naman, Joe. But anyhow, baka may gusto lang kayo idagdag ha, or questions na mali yung pagkaka-explain ko halimbawa, or kulang kasi dyan. Ang igsi lang nung ano natin, this one. Because yung susunod dito is, I'll take, justifications na ng punishment yung susunod dito. On how punishments are justified bago pa magkaroon ng therapeutic approach sa ating corrections. O ala, magkakasunod na ma'am yung mga sagot ninyo. So I hope, I assume wala kayong mga questions. So this is your activity for today. This is section A and B lang. Okay, baka may mga humalo dyan from ibang section na nag-join ng ating lecture. Mga kapatid, this is exclusive quiz or activity for section A and B. And wag naman kayo magkopyahan. I would know. I read your work one by one. Okay, so this is your activity. Is it clear? Yan. So this is a form of analytical exercise. This is actually your quiz 1. So analytical exercise na to. If you have listened to the lecture, kahit na medyo blurry sa inyo, nandun yung mga sagot nito actually. But it still needs analytics from you guys. So question first, cite at least 5 or kung hindi, or kung may alam pa kayo na iba, pwede nyo idagdag. Aims of early forms of punishment. And then you have to describe each aim. Ang aim is purpose. What are the purposes of early forms of punishment? If you have been listening to the lecture, nabanggit ko yung mga purposes of such punishments. So you have to specify, okay? Ano yung purpose? So you have to give at least 5 or more. Pag sinabi kong at least, 5 yung pinaka-minimum. Alright? Then you have to explain each or, you describe each. Hankay nga copy-paste. Maliwanag yan, nakalagay, do not copy-paste. Okay, number 1 rule nito, handwritten. Hindi siya encoded. Any clean sheet of paper. Mamabaling coupon ban, 1. Mamabaling white paper, 1. Baka kasi ilagay ko dito yellow paper, adaman agdamag mabaling coupon ban. Any clean sheet of paper. Okay, this is handwritten mga kapatid. That is the first question. Ngayon yung second question, this involves yung more analysis. You have to enumerate justifications for the 4 primitive forms of punishment. Ano yung 4 na binanggit natin na primitive forms of punishment? Ayan, yung mga naka-red. These are the 4 primitive forms of punishment na diniscuss lang natin. Stick lang tayo dito sa 4. Ngayon, give justifications for each form of punishment. Alam niyo yung justification? Paano mo ma-justify Na yung for example, death penalty by hanging. Ano yung justification ng society before kung bakit nila kailangang i-enforce yung ganyang klase ng punishment. And give examples, concrete examples. The best way to explain, kaya ako nag-example sa inyo is, that is the best way to explain. Okay? So those are only two questions lang yan. Pero you need to input so much of your analysis in this one. Maliwanag yung ating activity. Do you have questions in the activity? Hit the comment box if you have. Ayan. Aguray na questions yung mga kakabsat. Baka dati nga maliwanag dito yung activity. Again, uulitin ko 4th years ha. May mga nakikita kasi akong iba na medyo parehas yung kanilang activity. And you're under watch. Kapag may nakita pa akong medyo pagkakaparehas, warning nyo yan. Nang babagsak ako, it doesn't matter if you're 4th year. Sabi ko nga. Okay? So, do you have questions? O yan, due date and time. Na-screenshot nyo na ha. Nandiyan naman yung ano. Lagay ko na rin, dagdag ko dito sa ating screen. Today is Tuesday. So, ang due date nito is, wait a minute. Today is Tuesday, section EMB. Ayan, yung susunod na discussion na dapat natin is supposed to be Thursday, correct mga kapatid? Pero, hindi na tayo mag-meet online. So, Thursday. Thursday is 16th. September 2021 at 12 noon. Ayan. Ay, wait lang. Ayan. So, mali-mali pa yung spelling ko ng September. September na nga lang ang ini-spell ko. Ganyan. So, due date natin. Maliwanag yan ha. Thursday, September 16, 5 p.m. Ayan. Kasi yung mga iba sa inyo may mga works. Di ba dati nagta 10 a.m. ako, mga ganun. So, sabi ng iba, nag-request, ma'am, baka mabaling niya extend basit. Huwag nyo kasing antayin yung due date bago kayo magpasa. Pag may time kayo right after discussion, gawin agad, pasa agad. Huwag nyo antayin yung Thursday, ganun. I don't give extensions. Kaya may mga na late, ganun, na wala namang karason-rason. Nagko-comment ako late yung output mo, ading ko, ganun. Mga walang karason-rason, or kahit na hindi ka panipaniwala yung rason, yan. Half yung score or mas mababa, ganun. So, other questions? Baka may mga questions pa kayo mga kapatid regarding this activity. Very simple lang yung activity natin. I just want to, hear your thoughts about this one. Simple lang, di ba? Yung activity. Kahit siguro mga second years, first years, masasagot to. Gusto ko lang makita how you 4th years can answer in this one. So, thank you also. Thank you. Thank you lahat. So, but anyhow, if you don't have any other questions, mga kapatid, kasi wala na akong nakikitang questions, puro thank you naman yung nakikita ko na. This ends our discussion for this day. Next to this one is an offline one. Recorded na siya. At i-upload ko na rin siya later on. So if you don't have any other questions, mga kapatid, thank you for joining me this afternoon and good afternoon sa inyong lahat. Stay safe dyan sa Ilocos Norte kasi nag-GCQ na naman yung ibang places. So ayan. Ayun, thank you also. Mag-end na tayo ng ating broadcast here. So good afternoon once again. Again, what do you call this? FB group magpapas, okay? Maglalagay ulit ako doon ng per section. Ayan, thank you also sa inyong lahat. Let's end our discussion here kasi kawawa naman yung may load. Ganun. Thank you also. Oy, mag-screenshot lang ako ng inyong attendance pala. While you're saying thank you, mag-screenshot ako ng attendance. Although naka-record naman to, naka-screenshot pa lang ako. Screenshot pa rin ako. So, wait a minute. This is like 4 A and B. Okay. Ayan. So, pwede nang mag-leave yung iba sa inyo dyan. Tapos na yung ating discussion. So, once again, good afternoon, everyone, and God bless you.